A very good evening from London, and good evening from me, Dr. Dermot Hudson, the chairman of the British Group for the Study of Juche, the Juche idea, chairman of the Korean Friendship Association of the UK, and of course the owner of the SONGUN007 YouTube channel, defending people's Korea with no ifs or buts, and the militant voice of Juche and Songun in the UK, and probably the only pro-DPRK, pro-Juche YouTube channel that is based in the UK and that is in the English language. Welcome to everybody who's joined to our 35th live stream. Yes, 35 live streams, And yes, greetings to the two people who've just joined and put greetings in the chat. You're very welcome. Originally tonight, I was going to talk about the idea of Chiwon or Jiwon, because someone put a question at the last live stream. I was also going to talk about what's going to happen with in the DPRK in the coming year. But of course, no sooner had I arranged the live stream than virtually, I think the next day or 2 days afterwards, the Yankee imperialists, old Trump, went and bombed Venezuela and kidnapped, abducted the president of Venezuela, Comrade Nicolas Maduro, and his wife. And they're now being held in the US. So first of all, I'm going to say free Nicolas Maduro, hands off Venezuela, full solidarity with the Venezuelan people against US imperialism. I'll be chatting a little bit about, well, probably quite a lot about Venezuela later in this live stream. It's actually a country that I visited just over 20 years ago. But anyway, first, let's look at the two original topics that I put down to talk about tonight. And I mean, the last time we got a very interesting question about the idea of Chiwon, which is sometimes spelled CHIWON and other times JIWON. And it is quite a good question, because it can be argued that the Juche idea has its origins partly in the idea of Chiwon. So what was Chiwon? Well, the father of President Kim Il-sung was Mr. Kim Hyung-jik. He was born in 1894 and he lived until 1926. He obviously died at an extremely young age. Only 32 years old. Quite shocking, and he died as a result of torture by the Japanese police. Kim Hyun-jik was the founder and leader of the Korean National Association, an early movement for Korea's independence. And the idea of Chiwon, translated, it means aim high. And essentially it was the idea that Korea's independence could be achieved by its own efforts, by aiming high. And at the time, you had bourgeois nationalists and flunkies who tried to achieve the independence of the Korean nation, not by aiming high, not by relying on the Korean people, but looking to outside forces for their salvation. Some of the worst ones thought that simply if they asked the Japanese politely, they would get out of the country and give them back independence. So there was ideas of petitions for Korean independence. There was a movement even to pay back debts to Japan, which didn't work because simply once they'd paid back the debts to the Japan, the Japanese just said, well, you owe us even more money. You know, they shifted the goalposts, as one would expect from diabolical imperialists like the Japanese. And some bourgeois Korean nationalists looked to the USA. They thought the USA could give them independence. They looked to China under the KMT and so on. But Kim Hyong-jik didn't have such illusions. He believed in aiming high for Korea's independence and achieving Korea's independence by the efforts of the Korean people. And that became an important source, an important component source for the Juche idea. And indeed, it may be argued that to some extent the Juche idea was a synthesis between the idea of Chiwon, aim high, and Marxism-Leninism. President Kim Il-sung developed the idea of Chiwon into the Juche idea and achieved Korea's national liberation and built an independent socialist power of Juche that is independent in politics, self-sufficient in the economy, and self-reliant in national defense. And today, respected Marshal Kim Jong-un is further carrying the idea of Chiwon forward, the idea of aim high. He's turning Korea into an even stronger and mightier power by relying on their own resources. So that is the basically the idea of Chiwon simply explained. Now, to move on, say a little bit about what is going to happen in the coming year, 2026. We've already seen magnificent celebrations of the new year in Pyongyang and an excellent speech by respected Marshal Kim Jong-un to the New Year celebrations in Pyongyang. So what lies ahead for the DPRK in 2026? Well, I think the main event is going to be the 9th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea. Now, the Workers' Party of Korea is the supreme general staff of the Korean Revolution and the organizer and guide of all the victories of the Korean people. It is the guiding force of socialist construction in People's Korea. So the 9th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea will be an an extremely important event, and you cannot overstate the importance of the 9th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea. Previously, the 8th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea was held in 2021 in January, and the 7th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea was held in May 2016. And at the 9th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea, they're going to chart out policies and programs and lines for the coming, not just the coming year, but the next 5 years, because they will hold the 10th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea at the end of the decade. So they will map out different policies and lines. There will be a new 5-year plan. So that will be discussed and decided upon at the Congress. They will elect a new leadership, and they will no doubt chart out the foreign policy of the DPRK and different internal policies. I suspect there will be more discussion on the 20 by 10 regional development program, and possibly about expanding healthcare, all very important issues. So we will watch this space, as it were, to see what happens at the Congress, which I believe will be in February. No formal announcement has been made as to the date of the Congress. The Political Bureau of the Workers' Party of Korea will meet, and it will decide on a date for the Congress. In terms of DPRK anniversaries, in October, on the 17th of October, it will be the 100th anniversary of the Down with Imperialism Union, which was the first ever genuine communist revolutionary organization in Korea, and of course is the forerunner, or the historical root of today's Workers' Party Korea. So I'm assuming DPRK will hold some kind of celebration of this important anniversary. I'm not sure whether it will be on a big scale or small scale, because last year, 2025, the DPRK celebrated on a very grand scale the anniversaries of liberation, and particularly the 80th anniversary of the foundation of the Workers' Party Korea. That was celebrated on a very grand scale. I was even there, so it was absolutely amazing, and I've done a live stream about it and done a separate video about it. So we will see whether there will be big celebrations of the 100th anniversary of the Down with Imperialism Union. As for different stances of the DPRK through the coming year, I mean, as usual, certain elements are speculating about whether there will be talks between the US and DPRK. As I said before, and even before Venezuela, I think it would be unlikely. And from what I can see, and I'll return to this point later, I think Venezuela, the incident, the aggression in Venezuela by the US, will probably make it even more unlikely that the DPRK will talk to the US, or I think it's should be put the other way, that the US will actually try to reach out to the DPRK to talk to them, because I think Trump is becoming increasingly aggressive and arrogant, and I'll talk about a bit more about this in a minute or two when I come on to the whole subject of Venezuela. But I think it is not very likely at all there will be talks between the DPRK and US. Of course, DPRK have not ruled them out totally, but will not bargain over issues of principle. They have ruled out talking about denuclearization with the US. So the only negotiations that could take place between the DPRK and US would be about the US ending the anti-DPRK hostile policy. And I don't think the US would want to do that somehow. So starting to move on to the subject that's, I think, in everybody's minds, Venezuela. And I've actually also made a 15-minute video on that subject, which I think about 500 people have watched. I'll say a few words, but first, let me tell you a story, and I think it is sort of related to Venezuela, and it does involve the DPRK. Back in the 1970s, a military leader in the West African state of Dahomey, which was to become Benin, overthrew the reactionary pro-imperialist feudal-type government, and he set up the People's Republic of Benin and the People's Revolutionary Party of Benin. And this annoyed the former colonial power, France, considerably, as well as some puppet regimes in West Africa that surrounded Benin. In 1977, on the 17th of January 1977, some French mercenaries, led by a character called Colonel Bob Dinard, who by all accounts was a nasty and foul piece of work, a real gung-ho colonialist, who was both a mercenary but really also a French intelligence officer. And they took over the airport in Benin without much resistance from the army. And they had a plan to go and capture the president and take him back to France for a trial. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? These kind of tactics have been used by the imperialists before. But in this case, officially, this operation was nothing to do with France. It was mercenaries. But anyway, that is beside the main point of this story. A went to try and capture the presidential palace, but the president himself had gone to another part of the country. Meanwhile, the DPRK foreign minister, Ho Tam, was actually staying in Benin. And he was staying at the presidential palace along with his own bodyguards, who were Korean People's Army Special Forces. And also, there were some KPA advisors to the armed forces of Benin. So they quickly set up machine gun posts and fired upon the French mercenaries. Quite a few were killed. Colonel Dinard himself was badly wounded, and they turned tail and run. And that was the end of the regime change effort in the People's Republic of Benin. It was totally foiled and wiped out, largely due to the presence of KPA special forces and advisors in Benin. And DPRK sculptors actually built a special memorial to that occasion. So on to the subject of Venezuela, which I've already said quite a lot about in my video on the subject, but it's a subject I think I can talk more about, and I think people will want to also hear it. I mean, I speak as someone who actually visited Venezuela only for about 3 days back in October 2005. I'd actually gone there because there was an World Juche Congress on anti-imperialist independence that was being held in Caracas, partly sponsored by the Venezuelan government of it was then Hugo Chavez, and it was quite a good Congress. But Venezuela had sort of a mixed effect on me. They were, you could see they were strongly for socialism. They wanted socialism. I think it's more correctly to describe Venezuela as a country aspiring after socialism, or to use a very old-fashioned Soviet term, a country of socialist orientation, because it was not fully socialist. In fact, I found myself staying in the Hilton Hotel, which I think had been commandeered by the government. I could see a HSBC bank from my window. So, imperialist finance capital still had a foothold in Venezuela. They hadn't been kicked out. And also, what was very clear was that, there was a bourgeoisie still there. And in fact, only 3 years before, there'd been the attempted coup against Chavez by agents of imperialism and the bourgeoisie within Venezuela. I mean, that is a fact. And, once, twice I encountered members of the Venezuelan bourgeoisie in the lifts of the hotel, and they basically weren't pleased that we were there. And I heard them sort of muttering "Comunista, Comunista" under their their breath. They're very hostile. On the positive side, there was a massive amount of enthusiasm by Venezuelan comrades. There was a big program of building roads, of houses. They nationalized a foreign-owned oil company, and what had been like the corporate hotel the corporate building of the oil company had been turned into a university, and a university for poor people and working people. So that was the positive side of Venezuela. But as I said in the other video, and as has been said by many people on the internet and social media, it's a fact that if Venezuela had nukes, if it had Juche, if it had SONGUN, President Maduro would not be sitting in a jail in New York and Venezuela would not have been bombed by the Yankee imperialists. That 100 lives would not have been lost. And also, I think again, let's say the limitations of the government in Venezuela was shown up. The DPRK always says peace is on our bayonet, no compromise. But Maduro tried to talk to the US. In fact, I believe only a few weeks before he was captured, he'd had a phone call with Trump. And I believe he was quoting John Lennon and saying, "Give peace a chance." Well, the Yankees didn't want to give peace a chance at all. They wanted to give war a chance. They wanted to give aggression and invasion a chance. So I think the correctness of the DPRK's policies, its militant anti-imperialism, the Juche idea, the SONGUN policy, and the nuclear deterrent have been proved to be correct 1,000 times. And as for again, you can't help referring to them every now and again. The CIA's prize munchkins, NK News, in their secret bunker in South Korea, were saying that the fall of Venezuela will affect the DPRK. Well, first of all, it's not really clear whether Venezuela has fallen, but certainly it has suffered a very dramatic blow with the capture of President Maduro. But the other thing is, there's a sort of unwritten assumption that is a very close alliance between Venezuela and the DPRK. Now, it is true, the DPRK has an embassy in Caracas, and it also recognized Nicolas Maduro as the only legitimate president of Venezuela, because there were some countries would not recognize him, but the DPRK did. He took a very principled stand. However, the relationship between the Bolivarian Republic and the DPRK is not such a simple one, and it is not such a close ally as NK News assume. As say, I was there in 2005 when relations between DPRK and Venezuela were warming up quite a lot, and the Venezuelan government had, as I say, co-hosted the World Juche Congress on anti-imperialism and independence, even provided us with splendid accommodation in the Hilton Hotel. So it looked like they were going to be very close. And Chavez, President Hugo Chavez, was going to visit the DPRK. But in the end, he didn't, and he cited nuclear and missile tests of the DPRK as the reason. And I'm not 100% sure about this, and I would stand open to correction. If it's a mistake, I would admit to it. But I'm sure I once read somewhere that Venezuela had actually voted on the UN Security Council against DPRK nuclear tests. Of course, I'm sure they must very deeply regret that decision now. So, it wasn't such a close relationship as some assumes. Though, that said, Comrade Kim Jong-nam, who was then chairman of the Presidium of the Supreme People's Assembly, did visit Venezuela in 2018 and met President Maduro. But I don't know. I do not think that what happens in Venezuela will have any effect on the DPRK whatsoever. The DPRK is independent and self-reliant, and it doesn't depend on anyone. And as I say, I don't think the relationship between the two countries was very close. In terms of the implications of the Venezuela affair for the DPRK, I'm sure they will sharpen their vigilance greatly. And this, of course, is another factor, because it looks like President Maduro was betrayed by, from inside Venezuela. And the DPRK has always eliminated, it's always smashed any internal treason. The last case being that of Jang Song-tak in 2013. Again, DPRK has been proved right. If you build socialism, you have to destroy traitors, and you have to carry on the class struggle against class enemies. And you have to eliminate the bourgeoisie completely, and you have to establish the dictatorship of the proletariat in order to ensure that socialism is built. But looking at the implications for the DPRK, and as I say, dismissing speculation that this is going to somehow affect have some negative effect on the DPRK. But in terms of US policy towards the DPRK and the sharpening of contradictions between the US and the DPRK, I think these things will intensify because Trump is talking about Cuba will be next, which wouldn't surprise me. And, this whole thing about regime change in Venezuela and, the Monroe Doctrine, or what some people are now talking about, the Donroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine was the idea that the US should control whatever happened in the Americas. It had the right to intervene, but not outside the Americas. And the thing about the original Monroe Doctrine was it soon spilled over into the whole world. And in fact, even in the 19th century, the US had seized Hawaii, became part of the US, and they'd also started were in the Philippines. So if the US does fully achieve regime change in Venezuela and then possibly Cuba, they will probably also start looking elsewhere. And I've picked up on social media that there's a sort of wave of anti-communism that's been unleashed. So I think Trump may feel that at some point that he should move against the DPRK, and this is one reason why I think there will not be talks. And Trump himself is aging, and he is surrounded by sort of neocons like Vance and Rubio, who I think will increasingly call the shots. So I think there will be more hostile moves by the US against the DPRK. And although these will be futile, probably attempts at regime change, and I think today some American official actually said the seizure of the Russian oil tanker was a warning to the DPRK. So it shows that they do have the DPRK in their sights. So that's what I've got to say about the subject of Venezuela. And lastly, just alert people to published a new book, Dirty Tricks, The Sinister Plot Against the Korean-French Association, where I do a takedown of the different attempts to undermine the KFA. And that is available on lulu.com. So anyway, I will stop now because I've been speaking for quite long, and I will scroll back through the chat and start answering the questions. Well, hello to different comrades who put hello. Warm greetings to you, a Latin American 1000. Good to have you on the chat. Hope you're still there. Yes, good afternoon. Right. Warrior of the DPRK, what do you think of the fact that a special prosecutor said Yoon Suk-yeol tried to create justification for declaring martial law by luring Pyongyang into aggression? Yes, well, into armed aggression. Well, it wouldn't. First of all, I think this is about the drones that the South Korean puppets sent into the DPRK. It wouldn't have been armed aggression. It would have been self-defense. It would have been retaliation. But it is what is clear that Yun had a plan to try and carry out a big provocation against the DPRK and to incite military conflict so he could have justification for martial law. Solidarity from KFA Greece. Well, thank you very much. And solidarity to KFA Greece. What do you think about President Gustavo Petro? Well, other than he is the president of Colombia, I do not know an awful lot about him. He seems to be a sort of Latin American social democratic leader, a reformist leader, but I don't know so much about him at all. I mean, I've got a book on Colombia from the 90s by Jeff Simmons, which I haven't actually got through, but I mean, Petro comes after that anyway. All I knew about Colombia was about the FARC and the, I think, Colombian People's Army. So I don't know so much about Gustavo Petro, so I cannot comment on him. I'm sorry about that. Maybe I should go up and read about up on him. Maduro better cited Lenin and not Lennon. Yeah, that's very, very true. A donkey loaded with gold can open any fortress. The DPRK has submarines. Is there an e-book available as well? I'm not sure. I'm not sure which book you're talking about. I mean, if you're talking about the one I've just published, there isn't an e-book, but I can arrange that. Do you know any foreigners who studied for some time in Kim Il-sung University? Is it difficult to attend? Well, I know people who did study at Kim Il-sung University, but not for a very long time. For a couple of months, they were learning Korean language. I mean, Kim Il-sung University does take foreign students, but my understanding is simply to learn Korean language. Within KFA, in the past, we've given recommendation for hard-working members of KFA to go to Kim Il-sung University, but I emphasize it is for hard-working, loyal and dedicated members of the Korean Friendship Association. Yes, I agree. The United States is nothing but a rogue empire. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll try and get that sorted out, get an e-book done of that. This is a good question. Do you think DPRK will send forces to defend a nation which the US decides to attack? Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, or even Greenland? Well, in principle, I think the answer is broadly yes. But I mean, I think there's two important factors. I mean, the first very fundamental one is if they are asked to do so by the country concerned. And secondly, is a matter of treaty obligations, whether the countries concerned have treaties with the DPRK which commit the DPRK to giving military assistance, as in the case of the strategic treaty between Russia and the DPRK. I mean, of the countries you list, I would have felt the most likely one, which the DPRK might possibly give assistance to, is Cuba, where there is a strong relationship between the two countries, and I think there is a treaty between the two countries. And of course, back in 1962, when the Soviet revisionists were stabbing the Cubans in the back by withdrawing the missiles, DPRK diplomats and students put on in Cuba, put on uniforms and armed themselves, ready to fight beside the Cuban people. So, it's like you say, I think it's very much a question of whether they are requested to send military assistance or not. And I mean, there also could be, I think, logistical problems in getting DPRK troops into the Americas, because they would have to be airlifted or go by ship, and that could prove that could run into difficulties. Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, the DPRK has an embassy in Cuba, and they say in the past very close relationship with Cuba, and then don't forget the DPRK supplied Cuba with 100,000 automatic rifles in the 1980s, and also assisted the Cubans in building hydroelectric power stations, and also the Cubans helped train the DPRK in basketball and volleyball. Yes, good point. The Venezuelan government has arrested a general for helping the Americans, and that really confirms what a lot of people were saying, that there was internal treason. And I think, it seemed, though there were Cuban and Venezuelan casualties with the capture of President Maduro, it seemed a bit strange the Americans were able to get into Venezuela in the first place, and in fact they used very slow and large attack helicopters, Chinook helicopters. Surprising that they weren't just blown out the sky. It seemed to be all too easy for them. notwithstanding the casualties, quite heavy casualties taken by the Cubans. Hot dog vendor. Dermot, I'm a huge fan. Well, thank you very much. Yes, I mean that's right. I mean, yeah, sadly, I mean Venezuela sort of lacks the unity and internal cohesion that the DPRK has. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with the person who's put Venezuela still has big bourgeois parts that could play a part in it. Yeah, uh, you do still definitely, well, certainly what I saw 20 years ago. You have a bourgeoisie there. USSR lost 333 helicopters in Afghanistan in 9 years. US could have lost 150 aircrafts in one night if someone gave the order. Yes, it's very true. Yeah, I mean, I think you're quite right, Captain DPRK. Now, this is why it's so important to smash any kind of internal treason, because internal traitors are far more damaging than external enemies. The enemy within. These actions of the US imperialists in a sovereign country like Venezuela really angered me. It is a reminder, the US, how the US has been acting all of its history. The US has never been a good country. Well, I totally agree with you. The US was built on the blood of uh, uh, the Native Americans, the First Nations. It was built on their blood and on slavery and by expansion. And I think with Trump, he's taking the mask of MAGA off. This when he said, "Oh, there'd be no wars under his watch," and they wouldn't fight costly foreign wars. I think this is not true. We're starting to see the real Trump. Dear Dr. Hudson, some people make jokes regarding Trump invading countries with maybe low self defense but not doing it with DPRK because of military gear. You know what I mean? Well, yes, nukes, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Yeah, I mean, totally agree. If the US tried to do this with the DPRK, and apparently they have got plans. There are plans that exist for this kind of operation to be carried out against the DPRK. Yeah, it would, as say, the US would get nuked. South Korea, Japan, Guyana, these would all be nuked. Do you think the DPRK would possibly try to help other countries that want to have their own nuclear arms now the US is showing their desire to take over anyone who does not have them? Well, that's an interesting question, and it's for the DPRK to decide. Originally, when they tested the first ever nuke in October 2006, they stated that the DPRK's nukes were primarily for self-defense, and they would not export them. But maybe that could change. Let's see. US wanted to show in the UN a sample of Venezuelan cocaine, but after a visit of Zelensky, no one could find it. Well, that doesn't say. Good joke. Yes, you can't help watching those. I think they're Turkish videos where he's Zelensky in his golden toilets and begging for money all the time and stealing the money from the naive Europeans. I hear that there was a missile test. Well, I don't know if there was a missile test on Sunday, the day after the US aggression in Venezuela. And that was confirmed by the Korean Central news agency. The test was carried out on the outskirts of Pyongyang in the presence of respected Marshal Kim Jong-un. And it was a test of a hypersonic missile. And Marshal Kim Jong-un himself made a short statement and explained that the international situation means they need to strengthen their deterrence. So that was confirmed. I mean, I don't know if, because, I've been offline for a couple of hours, but I don't know if there's been another missile test. I'm sure KCNA will confirm it. Someone is playing music at high volume, preferably in your residential area. Well, I try my best to answer the questions. I quite enjoy these live streams. The whole situation with the US is absolutely absurd. Meanwhile, in the DPRK, respected Comrade Kim Jong-un drives a forklift. Yeah, I mean, I really liked seeing that the pictures and the video of respected Marshal Kim Jong-un driving the forklift truck, a true people's leader, man of the people. You can't imagine Keir Starmer doing that. In fact, I'd hate to think of Keir Starmer trying to drive a forklift. Goodness knows what would happen. think socialism would have a massive success across the world if not for the US fight against it. The DPRK would have been a world superpower if there weren't sanctions against it. Well, basically agree with what you're saying. Socialism would have worked without sanctions, without constant interventions, without sabotage and destabilization operations by the US. Don't forget, as well as obvious sanctions, there's all sorts of underhand operations of sabotage, trying to ruin crops, all sorts of mayhem that the US have got up to covertly. And I think the DPRK will become a superpower anyway, despite the US sanctions against it. Yeah, I mean, this was at a construction site of a new museum in Pyongyang, which is going to be dedicated to the overseas military operations of the Korean People's Army. Yes, and he was digging. He was digging. I mean, I'll have to try and find a video. Somewhere, see if I can find that. I'll put it in the chat. Do you think superpower or way better off? I think both, actually. Living standards in the DPRK are definitely going up and up. I've seen that clearly during my last 2 visits. Well, I think the Marshal is actually a very modest man. I think he'd be a bit surprised that people were sort of collecting things. I was told when I was in the DPRK, I saw the pictures of President Kim Il Sung, Chairman Kim Jong Il, asked when why isn't there the picture of respected Marshal Kim Jong Un, and the guide said, well, our people wanted it, but he forbid it. One cannot blame the US for everything. The role of world's policemen could be occupied by any country once Russian Empire was gendarme of Europe. Then it became the first socialist state. Well, uh, I'm not too sure about that. I think in the past there were different contenders. I have to say that also Britain used to like to see itself as a sort of world police, and had the huge British Empire. But as I say, the thing about the US is, they've appointed themselves, the world police, global cop. Think they can try leaders of other countries, and they think they can make their own rules and impose them on the rest of the world. Trump is a believer in the cult of personality. Well, he's certainly got one around himself, and also that Musk character. Don't care for him at all. I don't like the way social media is always saturated by all the stuff about Trump or Musk. I don't like it at all. Might just see if any other questions come up through the chat. Sometimes the chat can be slow. Well, just while I wait for a few more questions, I'll stay on for a bit more. In fact, or if a lot of questions come on, I will stay on longer. But just talk about our plans, about activities. We're going to resume the reading sessions very soon. Try to plan one for the January 17th, not confirmed yet. And this will be on Telegram. Most of our online events will be on Telegram, because that seems to be the main online platform nowadays. Skype, as well, that went nearly a year ago. So they'd be on Telegram. So always check out the KFA UK Telegram channel. Might be a good idea to put that in the chat actually now, so as many people know about the Telegram channel as possible. And we've also got a Juche Songum channel. Yeah, I mean, I know some people can't use Telegram, and it can be problematic, but the thing about it's not heavily censored like Facebook is or Twitter is. So we use it, but yes, I know for some people it's not ideal. I think the US has successfully deceived the world for so long because it disguises itself as a truly free country. Yeah, that is a very profound point. indeed, I think as we say, you've hit the nail on the head. It's this propagandized picture of the so-called land of the free. And I think, certainly in Britain, I don't know about other European countries and outside Europe, but I know every time you criticize the US, you will find people leaping to its defense. And one of the things, it's so free. Don't. Where would we be without the US? I think we'd be without a lot of wars to start with. Right, good point. Okay, I'll put them in the description as well, or in the comments, so people can see those links. But anyway, back to activities. We have resume the reading session. We're going to have an online KFA UK AGM at the end of January, because only KFA UK members can actually vote in that. And we're going to be resuming real life meetings, a bit of a lull. I mean, we've had the Christmas and New Year period, and in case of the UK, and I think other parts of the world, quite bad weather, which is quite off-putting. But we'll be resuming the program of real life meetings. I'm going to be up in East Anglia in Ipswich on the 13th of February, where I'm going to do a meeting there. And we're thinking of holding some events in London, maybe on the 7th of February. We got to check it doesn't clash with a Palestine or Venezuela march. And I'll probably be going to the Venezuela protest tomorrow. I mean, if there's any London-based comrades listening to this, be happy to meet up with you, take DPRK flag. Yes, DPRK is free. Yes, it is the most free society in the world, where it has democracy, second to none, people's democracy, a democracy that is not tainted by money, where money can buy everything in capitalist countries. Well, one of the things I think we're starting to get sidetracked into a discussion about the merits and demerits of Telegram. But I do find one thing is you can put your own username on Telegram. Facebook every so often clamp down on people not using their real names. Years ago, I used to be Juche London on Facebook, but they didn't like that, and they converted that into a page and insisted I had my own personal account. So I just called myself Juche KFA UK, and then they decided, they deleted that. Because they said, it's not a real name. So I went on Facebook under my real name. I will be going to the Pyongyang Marathon in April. Can't wait. Well, uh, uh, very good. Lucky you. Very congratulations. Yes, indeed. Have fun. Right. I'll just see if there's any more questions. Your first trip. Well, it'd be quite an eye opener. You'll be very surprised. I have travelled policing KFA Greece. So many trolls and insults. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that, especially on Facebook and Instagram, to some extent on Twitter. There seems to be a lot of trolling going on. I'm sure it's organised from somewhere. One or two of the accounts are suspicious. Always look out for people who have no friends or nothing on their Facebook profiles, or have locked their Facebook profiles. Uh, it's very suspect. They could even be bots. But I've noticed some of them, there's been heavy trolling going on directed against certain profiles or pages. It must be organised from somewhere. We had all this stuff last year about the NED being, the so-called National Endowment for Democracy in the US, which is a major US regime change outfit. Stuff about Trump shutting it down or cutting the funding. But I think these kind of organisations have come back and are very active, and they are engaging in dirty tricks operations on social media. And I'm sure that the trolling is being organised by agencies of the deep state in the US, and possibly the UK as well. I mean, the UK has something called the 77th Brigade of the British Army, which is actually a British Army cyber warfare outfit, special operations outfit, which was set up to conduct war on the internet. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if some of the trolls actually come from there. Yes, Captain DPRK. Uh, you know, uh, uh, they always say that, and it's same old tired cliches uh, each each time. Uh, you should say that DPRK is a people's dictatorship. That's what we should say. But the fact is that all states are going to be a dictatorship of one kind or another. And, people who say that such and such state is a democracy are either naive, or they are consciously misleading you, or are misled themselves. I mean, capitalist countries are a bourgeois dictatorship. The capitalist legal system is an instrument of dictatorship against the people. You can be forced out of your home by them. Your conversations are really nice, Dr. Hudson. You are welcome. When was your first visit to the DPRK and how was it? Well, I've talked about this before. My first ever visit was in May 1992. I was invited by the Korean Association of Social Scientists. In those days, you could still travel. It was the last year that Air Koryo was operating from Schonenfeld Airport in the former East Berlin. So I went, got my ticket and my DPRK visa from the DPRK embassy in Berlin, and then got on the plane at Schonenfeld, and we had a stopover at Moscow for about 3 hours, and then flew 8 hours to Pyongyang, and it was absolutely incredible. I read about the DPRK in books and magazines, but it seemed even better than what I expected. There were things that went beyond my expectations, like they were using computers in schools. There were women's hairdressers on the ground floor of basements of flats. Obviously, it was very neat and clean. And after I think my second or third night, I thought, well, the DPRK will stand for 1,000 years. It won't collapse like the Soviet Union or Hungary. You can read about my first visit in my book, Travels in the Land of Juche, Korea, which is on archive.org. And I'll just try and put a link for you. As I say, it's free of charge, so you don't have to spend any money. It's a pity you can't make pages private. Well, I'm not sure about. In fact, maybe that's the idea why they're attacking pages, so that we make them private and restrict them to only certain people, so that that we end up preaching to the converted, which I think we shouldn't do. But it's, it is quite busy. It does keep you quite busy, sort of banning the trolls. I mean, that the only thing you can do is ban them. Yes, Facebook is disgraceful. Question about your first visit is quite. You make a special video. Yeah, I could do that. I'm going to try and do that when I'm not busy. Yeah, I mean, again, hitting the nail on the head again tonight. Western and South Korean media can write any lie about the DPRK and it magically becomes truth. That is, as I say, that's also spot on. This is the thing. They make up any kind of rubbish, and it is believed, it is taken as gospel. It's the same with the so-called defectors. Their accounts, which are, in most cases are really ghostwritten by the South Korean puppet National Intelligence Service and by the CIA. Their accounts are taken as some kind of great truth, and they're quoted all the time, and you get people, I listen to Yeomi Park, blimey. People believe anything negative about the DPRK. Well, again, that is true. That is all too true. And sadly, I think also with some leftists, are prepared to believe the worst about the DPRK, or you get from some of the, but we've got to be critical, what about Stalin and 1956? We've got to be critical. And these leftists who they support regimes that could be kicked over like a sandcastle by the imperialists. But when it comes to the DPRK, it's, no, we're not sure, we don't know what really happens there, and personality cult, human rights, and we've got to be critical. Yeah, well, I was very cynical when about when they said they were cutting the funding for Radio Free Asia. I thought they won't do that, and sure enough, it's back. I think also it shows Trump's hostile intent towards the DPRK. He wants to do it down. USA is a corporation dictatorship, a corporate dictatorship. Yeah, again, in the chat, a lot of people are hitting the nail on the head. Yeah, the DPRK, if I remember rightly, it has rare earth deposits, massive rare earth deposits, which these days rare earths are incredibly important because of the IT industry. And I believe a couple of Australians estimated the DPRK has $3 trillion worth of rare earths. And of course, old Trump, greedy man he is, would love to seize them. I mean, just like with the Venezuelan oil, you say that it's human rights, it's fighting a dictatorship, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, just want the oil. And similarly with the DPRK, they just want the rare earths. And I think the reason why Trump tried back in 2018 and early 2019 to open talks with the DPRK, and it looked quite radical. Looked like he was going to be different, and in fact, ironically, Trump got attacked by liberals from the right for talking to the DPRK. But the real intention, I think, was to try and soften the DPRK up so he could try somehow seize the resources of the DPRK through the back door. He was intelligent enough to realise that he couldn't break down the DPRK's front door, so he thought he could try and get in through the back door. But of course, where he came unstuck was he underestimated the DPRK and the astuteness and wisdom of respected Marshal Kim Jong-un. And of course, with these, shouldn't stray too far from the basic remit of these live streams, but, the basic idea of talks with Russia, for peace in the Ukraine is what Trump really wants to do is to seize Russia's resources, as did Biden. Only Trump realizes that trying to use Ukrainian proxies to bring about regime change in Russia is not working. So, he's looking to do it another way. It's all about, these things are not about human rights or dictatorship. They are about grabbing resources. And the US is just such a greedy country. They can never have enough. Yes, the hate against the DPRK kind of feels racist, almost a bit colonialist. The whole idea that people are brainwashed and must be freed by capitalism and become like everyone else. Great point, fantastic point. Again, hitting the nail on the head. I've always argued that the hostility against the DPRK combines anti-communism with racism. Is more than a hint of racism, of Orientalism in a lot of the anti-DPRK propaganda. It dehumanizes both the people of the DPRK and their leadership as well. And yeah, I mean, it is colonialist because what it's aimed at is destroying the socialist system of the DPRK and making the DPRK into a colony of US and world imperialism. It's very, very true. And another thing I would sort of point out while I'm here is I think sort of anti-DPRK hate, or what I once said was DPRK phobia, but it never quite caught on. DPRK phobia is really racism for liberals, for white middle class liberals, because they can't, they can't sort of they'd be seen as very illiberal if they criticised different ethnic minorities or racial groups. But all this hate against the DPRK is like an outlet for the subliminal racist feelings that many many middle-class liberals really secretly have, but don't like to admit to. Thankfully, the DPRK ignored the nukes for me, but not for thee. The West kept pushing to countries outside their little club, so the US will have to think more than twice before acting. Yes, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, nukes for me and not for thee. That's a great way of putting it. I mean, the US and in fact other Western imperialist countries, it's always a case of do as I say, but do not do as I do. Their rules are for other people, and the whole idea of so-called nuclear non-proliferation was very much about trying to limit nuclear weapons to a small exclusive club. And you had the so-called nuclear test ban treaty in the 60s between the USA and the Soviet revisionists, and basically that aim to limit nuclear weapons to a handful of countries: the US, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. The Chinese, in those days, China was a different country, revolutionary country. They actually broke through that monopoly and exploded, tested their own bomb. And indeed, both China and the DPRK strongly criticised the nuclear test ban treaty. But yes, I mean, it is very much about a small number of countries having nuclear weapons and other countries being deprived of them and not having a nuclear deterrent, so they cannot defend themselves against the kind of aggression that we saw last weekend. Right, okay. We've been going for about 1 hour 36 minutes, but I'm sure there might be a few more questions, so I'll just let people fire away with some more questions before I stop. I'm going to have a cup of hot chocolate after this. It's evening in London. I know some people are watching from the USA, and in fact, George in Greece is probably 2 hours ahead, so it's probably quite late at night, and maybe got people from a lot of other countries. Bad PR, also PR. Yeah, I've heard that argument many times. There's no such thing as bad publicity. The more people, more they attack the DPRK, more people want to find out. Even in my own case, to some extent, that was the case. I mean, I first started getting vaguely interested in the DPRK in the early 80s, around the end of 1982, 1983. But it was a vague passing interest. Couldn't find out much about it. And then there was an Awful Observer article in, I think, 1985, which really by a character called Peter McGill. I mean, previously there'd been a good Observer colour supplement article on the DPRK by Murray Sale, but there'd been a very hostile one by the Observer's Far East correspondent, which really attacked the DPRK quite a lot and talked about the Juche idea, which I'd never heard of before. It was very damning about the DPRK, but I resolved to try and find out about the Juche idea for myself. And I asked someone at the local Morning Star Readers and Supporters group. Morning Star, by the way, being a left-wing daily paper in Britain, but I won't go there. But anyway, someone, where can I find the works of Kim Il-sung? And he said, second-hand bookshop in such and such place. Well, he said, you don't want to read those, you want to read thirsty books from the Soviet Union. But anyway, I didn't listen, and I went and bought a second-hand copy of Kim Il-sung Works, Volume 5. Yes, and people don't trust their own politicians, yes. I think it's more socialism phobia than DPRK phobia. Hollywood was filled with movies presenting Vietnam as the villain. Well, I think it's both, but except there's, socialism phobia. I mean, there's anti-communism, McAfeeism. I mean, someone once wrote about the US that people are told communism is bad all the time, but no one actually knows what it means. You know, people hate communism without knowing what it means. Agreed. There's been an uptick in the DPRK curiosity lately that gives an opportunity to bring more facts and bounce to discussing the country. Minds can hopefully be opened through that. Yes, totally agree with you. The Friendly Father song has helped a lot. Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic song, and I was there when it was debuted. Yes, George, the moaning, moaning star. I remember people it used to also be called the yawning star or the boring star. Hope there's no CPB members on the live stream, or if there are, they're dissident CPB members. Okay, if people would just like to fire away with a few more questions or comments, I'll take about 2 or 3 more, and then I shall close in the stream. We'll aim to be back in 2 weeks. Just wait. I mean, because the chat can be slow. There can be a bit of a time lag between people putting comments and them actually appearing on the chat. And the other problem is disappearing comments, which sometimes happen, or you can actually, if you're not careful, miss the comments. Well, what does the Bra Party think about the DPRK? Well, they have relations, fraternal relations with the Workers' Party of Korea. They support the DPRK, and that's basically it. They support it as a socialist country from an anti-imperialist position. I say, I try to sort of keep out of discussing different parties, but it's I was just remembering this meeting of a Morning Star readers and supporters group in Hampshire in the 80s. So that's how we got onto that subject. Right. Well, I'll just give people 1 or 2 more minutes, see if they've got stuff they want to say. But in the meantime, I think it's been a really great live stream. I think they're getting better. The comments are really getting much better. And I say, just to remind people, would be resuming the reading sessions very soon. Those will be online. We're going to start trying to roll out a few real life meetings, and I think try and have a few meetings in London, but it'd be great to get out to other parts of the country. I think a visit to the Merseyside Marxist Book Fair is on, and maybe a few KFA UK regional meetings. During one of your visits to the DPRK, did you attend one of the opera performances? I've been to different art performances. Been to several orchestral performances by orchestras. Yeah, I've been to where you've had singers perform, but it wasn't actually one of the DPRK operas. So far, what I've not been able to do is to go and see one of the four revolutionary operas, classic revolutionary operas in the DPRK, like The Flower Girl and The Sea of Blood, for example. I think it'd be absolutely great. Visits to the DPRK are too short. I'd love to be able to go and stay there for several weeks and go to the opera and so on. Right. Well, as I say, I think we've taken quite a lot of questions, had a good discussion. As I say, we will have different online events, be resuming real life events. Saying don't forget the latest book. And I'm going to be back in 2 weeks. Try and make sure that these streams are every 2 weeks. As I say, there's a lot of there is a lot of curiosity about the DPRK. There's also a lot of propaganda and misinformation about the DPRK, and I think the coming year will see a more intense confrontation between the DPRK and US imperialism. So these streams will be important. So will we be back on the 23rd of January, which is also the anniversary of the capture of the USS Pueblo, which is an interesting topic. So that can form the basis or be one of the subjects I talk about in the next stream. So anyway, it's been great with you all. Some fantastic questions. Really, it's been really good. I'm really starting to enjoy these live streams. So wherever you are, I wish you a very good evening. Goodbye and see you again.